The Galactic Assembly had known peace for 10,000 years. This was not a figure of speech or a rough estimate. It was exactly 10,000 years, 3 months, and 14 days since the last act of violence between spacefaring species. The galaxy had evolved beyond such primitive behavior. War was a word found only in ancient texts. Weapons existed only in museums. The very concept of one species attacking another seemed as strange and impossible as breathing in the vacuum of space. 37 different species lived together under the covenant of harmony. They traded freely. They shared technology. They helped each other through disasters and celebrated each other's achievements. The Nexus Station, a massive structure at the center of known space, served as the heart of this civilization. Millions of beings from dozens of worlds lived and worked there in perfect cooperation. Ambassador Velketh of the Sonari Consortium had served on the station for 60 years. She was considered young by her species' standards, but she had already earned a reputation for wisdom and calm judgment. Her people resembled tall, slender birds with feathers that changed color based on their emotions. Right now, her feathers were a peaceful blue as she reviewed trade agreements in her office. The alarm that shattered the silence was unlike anything she had ever heard. It was not a fire warning or an environmental alert. The sound came from systems so old that most people had forgotten they existed. This was the first contact protocol, a procedure designed for meeting new spacefaring species. Velketh rushed to the observation deck along with thousands of others. The massive windows showed the familiar stars of the galactic core. But there, emerging from a fold in space itself, was something new. The ship that appeared was unlike anything in the Assembly's records. It was massive, nearly 2 kilometers long. Its shape was angular and aggressive, with sharp edges and hard lines. The hull was dark gray, almost black, and covered with strange protrusions that the scanners could not immediately identify. "What is that?" someone whispered. The station's computer answered a moment later, and its words sent a chill through every being present. "Analysis complete. The vessel matches no known design. However, surface structures appear to be weapons systems. Repeat, the approaching vessel is armed with multiple weapons systems." Confusion spread through the crowd. Weapons systems on a ship. The idea was so strange that many beings simply could not process it. A young Melori scientist asked the question that many were thinking. "What are weapons systems? I do not understand this term." An elderly Thran historian answered in a shaking voice. "They are machines designed to damage or destroy other machines, or to kill living beings. This is a warship, a vessel built specifically for violence." The word warship spread through the station like a disease. Panic began to build. Species that had never known fear suddenly felt it for the first time. Some fled to their ships. Others froze in place, unable to move. The Galactic Assembly's leaders gathered in emergency session, but nobody knew what to do. They had no procedures for this. They had no defenses. They had no weapons of their own. High Counselor Threnix, the leader of the Assembly, was a being of great age and dignity. His species, the Valorian, were known for their calm and logical thinking. But even he felt fear as he studied the approaching vessel. The ship's name was painted on its hull in an unknown script. The translation software worked quickly. "The vessel identifies itself as UES Perseverance," Threnix announced to the Council. "UES appears to stand for United Earth Ship. The species calls themselves humans. They come from the 3rd planet of a yellow star in an unexplored region of the galaxy." "We must flee," said Counselor Mren of the Colossi. "We cannot fight such a vessel. We have nothing that could stop it." "Where would we go?" asked another counselor. "If they can build one warship, they can build more. Running will only delay the inevitable." The debate continued, but it was meaningless. The humans had already requested permission to dock. They had followed all standard protocols. They had transmitted peaceful greetings in the universal language. Despite the terror their ship inspired, they were behaving exactly as any new species would behave when seeking first contact. Ambassador Velketh volunteered to meet them. Someone had to, and she found that her fear was matched by her curiosity. What kind of beings built such terrible machines? What kind of world produced creatures who thought of violence as normal? The docking bay was empty except for a small security team. These security officers had never faced anything more dangerous than a trade dispute. They carried no weapons because weapons did not exist. They stood in a line, trying to look official, but their terror was obvious. The airlock opened, and the humans stepped through. They were smaller than Velkath had expected. Bipedal, like many species. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head with 2 eyes, and a mouth. Their skin came in various shades of brown and pink. They wore matching gray uniforms with symbols on their chests. But it was their eyes that caught Velkath's attention. She had expected to see aggression, hunger, the cold calculation of predators. Instead, she saw exhaustion, sadness, pain. These were not the eyes of conquerors. These were the eyes of beings who had suffered greatly. The leader stepped forward. She was a female human with dark hair cut short and lines on her face that suggested age and stress. Her uniform had more symbols than the others, indicating rank or authority. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Ship Perseverance," she said. Her voice was steady but tired. "We come in peace. We seek the help of the galactic community." The words were so unexpected that Velkath could not respond immediately. She had prepared for threats, for demands, for violence. She had not prepared for a request for help. "I am Ambassador Velkath of the Sonari Consortium," she finally managed. "I welcome you to Nexus Station on behalf of the Galactic Assembly. I must ask, your vessel, it carries weapons?" Captain Chen nodded. Her expression was neither proud nor ashamed. "Yes, the Perseverance is a military vessel. It is designed for combat. I understand this must seem strange to you. Strange is not the word I would choose," Velkath said carefully. "Terrifying is more accurate. We have not known violence for 10,000 years. The sight of your ship has caused great fear." The human captain closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, Velkath saw something unexpected. "Shame, I am sorry," Chen said. "We did not mean to frighten you. But we had no choice. We could not travel into the unknown unarmed. Our history has taught us that the universe is not kind to those who cannot defend themselves." Velkath wanted to argue. She wanted to explain that the galaxy was peaceful, that there was nothing to fear, that weapons were unnecessary. But something in the human's voice stopped her. There was a weight there, a heaviness that spoke of terrible experiences. "You mentioned seeking help," Velkath said instead. "What kind of help do you need?" Captain Chen took a deep breath. "Our world is dying. Our sun has become unstable. We have perhaps 50 years before Earth becomes uninhabitable. We built this ship to find a new home for our people. We carry the hopes of 8 billion humans." The statement hit Velkath like a physical blow. This was not an invasion fleet. This was not a conquering army. This was a desperate species fleeing extinction. The warship suddenly made more sense. If your entire civilization was at stake, would you not want to protect it with every tool available? "I must bring you before the High Council," Velkath said. "They will have many questions. They are very frightened of your ship and your capabilities, but I believe they will listen." "Thank you," Captain Chen said. And for just a moment, her tired face showed something like hope. The walk to the council chambers was long and tense. Every being they passed stared at the humans with fear. Some fled at the sight of them. Others pressed themselves against walls, trying to make themselves invisible. The humans noticed this reaction, but said nothing. Their faces remained calm, but Velkath could see the pain in their eyes. They knew what they represented to these peaceful species. They knew the terror they inspired. The council chamber was a vast circular room filled with representatives from all 37 species. Normally, the room buzzed with friendly conversation and debate. Today, it was silent. Every eye focused on the small group of humans as they entered. High Counselor Threnix rose from his seat. His voice carried the authority of centuries. "You are the humans," he said. It was not a question. "We are," Captain Chen replied. "You have brought violence to our doorstep. You have reminded us of horrors we thought long forgotten. You have caused more fear today than this galaxy has known in 10,000 years." Chen did not flinch from his words. "I understand, and I am sorry, but we had no choice. Our people are dying. We need your help." Threnix studied her for a long moment. "Before we consider your request, we must understand what you are. Your vessel carries weapons. Your species apparently knows war. We need to know the truth about humanity. All of it. Captain Chen nodded slowly. You want to know our history. The real history. Not just the good parts. Yes, all of it. We cannot help you if we cannot trust you. And we cannot trust you if we do not understand you. The human captain looked at her crew. Something passed between them. Some silent communication born of shared experience. The holographic images filled the council chamber with light and shadow. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the center. Her face calm, but her eyes heavy with the weight of what she was about to show. Humanity is approximately 300,000 years old as a species, she began. For most of that time, we lived in small groups, hunting and gathering food. We developed language, art, and culture. We loved our children and cared for our elderly. In many ways, we were much like any young species finding its way in the universe. The images showed early humans gathered around fires, painting on cave walls, creating tools from stone and bone. The council members watched with interest. This seemed familiar. Many species had similar beginnings. But our world was harsh, Chen continued. Earth is what some might call a death world. Our gravity is strong. Our weather is violent. Predators filled every corner of our planet. And we were not the strongest, fastest, or most dangerous creatures on Earth. We survived because we were clever, because we worked together, and because we never gave up. The images shifted. Now they showed humans facing down massive predators, building shelters against storms, migrating across frozen lands. The council saw the determination in those ancient faces. They saw the stubborn refusal to die. This taught us an important lesson, Chen said. The universe does not care about us. It will not protect us. If we want to survive, we must protect ourselves. A Melori counselor raised a tentacle. This is understandable. Many species face difficult early conditions. But surely, as you develop technology, this harsh outlook changed? Captain Chen's expression grew darker. No, it grew worse. The holographic images changed again, and the real horror began. This is called the First World War, Chen said. It happened approximately 110 years ago by Earth time. 20 million people died. The images showed trenches filled with mud and bodies, machines that rained death from the sky, poison gas that choked the life from soldiers. The council members watched in stunned silence as humans killed other humans on an industrial scale. We told ourselves it was the war to end all wars, Chen continued. We were wrong. This is the Second World War. 70 to 85 million dead. We developed weapons capable of destroying entire cities in a single flash. The image of a mushroom cloud rising over a burning city caused several counselors to cry out in horror. Others covered their eyes or turned away. A Colossi delegate actually collapsed and had to be carried from the chamber. But Chen did not stop. She showed them genocides where millions were murdered for their beliefs or their ancestry. She showed them famines where children starved while food rotted in warehouses. She showed them slavery, torture, terrorism, and countless other acts of cruelty that humans had inflicted upon each other. Stop, High Counselor Threnix finally said. His voice was barely a whisper. Please, stop. Captain Chen paused the presentation. The chamber was silent except for the sounds of weeping and distress. You asked for the truth, Chen said quietly. This is the truth. This is what humanity is. This is what we have done. Threnix rose slowly from his seat. His ancient body trembled with emotion. You are monsters, he said. You are the most terrible creatures this galaxy has ever known. Your capacity for violence exceeds anything in our records. You make the ancient harvesters seem gentle by comparison. Chen did not argue. She did not defend or explain. She simply nodded. We are capable of great evil. That is true, but that is not all we are. What more could there possibly be? Threnix demanded. What could balance against such horror? Chen reactivated the holographic display. The images changed again. After each war, there were those who worked for peace. After each genocide, there were those who risked their lives to save strangers. After each famine, there were those who gave everything they had to feed the hungry. The images now showed doctors treating wounded enemies, civilians hiding refugees in their homes, strangers donating blood and money to disaster victims on the other side of the planet. Humans are capable of great evil, Chen said. But we are also capable of great good. We contain both extremes. We are a species at war with itself, constantly struggling between our worst impulses and our best hopes. She showed them the end of slavery, the fall of tyrants, the slow expansion of rights and freedoms. She showed them scientists curing diseases, artists creating beauty, ordinary people performing extraordinary acts of courage and compassion. We built weapons that could destroy our world, Chen said, but we chose not to use them. We created nuclear arsenals capable of ending all life on Earth, and then we spent decades negotiating treaties to reduce them. We developed the power of gods and used it to generate electricity instead of destruction. Ambassador Velketh found her voice. Why, if you have such capacity for violence, why did you not destroy yourselves? Chen smiled sadly. Many times we almost did, but there was always someone who chose differently. A leader who stepped back from war, a soldier who refused an order, an ordinary person who stood up and said, "This is wrong." We survived not because violence is our nature, but because choosing peace is also our nature. We are always fighting that battle inside ourselves. The chamber fell silent as the counselors processed this information. The terror was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Confusion, perhaps, or the beginning of understanding. You said your world is dying, Threnix finally said. Explain. Chen's shoulders slumped slightly. This was clearly a painful subject. Our sun has become unstable. We do not fully understand why. Perhaps it is natural. Perhaps our own actions damaged it somehow. We have been polluting our world for centuries. We nearly destroyed our own climate before we finally changed our ways. But by then, the sun itself began to fail. She showed them images of Earth, a blue and green world covered with clouds, orbiting a yellow star. It was beautiful in a fragile way. In 50 years, perhaps less, the sun will begin to expand. The oceans will boil. The atmosphere will burn away. Everything we have built, everything we have accomplished, everyone we love will be destroyed. And so you built this ship, Velketh said. Yes, the Perseverance is the first of what we hoped would be many vessels. We built it to find a new home, a world where we could live in peace, far from the dying light of our sun. But why weapons? A Melori counselor asked. You came seeking help. Why bring machines of death? Chen's expression hardened slightly. Because we did not know what we would find. Our history taught us that the universe is dangerous, that those who cannot defend themselves are destroyed. We hoped to find friends among the stars, but we prepared to find enemies. She paused and looked around the chamber at the frightened faces watching her. I understand now that our fears were wrong. You have built a civilization based on peace and cooperation. You have evolved beyond violence. In that way, you are better than us. We came prepared for war and found paradise. Threnix shook his head slowly. We did not evolve beyond violence. We simply forgot it. Our peace is not a choice. It is ignorance. We would not know how to fight even if we wanted to. Then perhaps we can teach you. Chen said quietly. Perhaps our curse can become your blessing. If there is ever a threat to this peaceful galaxy, humanity can stand against it. Before anyone could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the station. It was different from the first contact alert, deeper and more urgent. The station's main computer spoke in a tone that carried no emotion, but delivered words that shattered the Council's world. Long-range sensors have detected multiple large objects entering the galaxy. From intergalactic space, configuration matches historical records. Identification confirmed. Harvesters. Repeat. The harvesters have returned. The silence that followed was absolute. Then chaos erupted. Counselors screamed and fled from their seats. Some collapsed in terror. Others simply stared in disbelief, unable to accept what they had heard. Velketh turned to Captain Chen and saw something unexpected in the human's eyes. There was fear, yes, but also something else. Recognition, understanding. What are harvesters? Chen asked. Threnix answered in a broken voice. They are the reason we abandoned war. 12,000 years ago, they came from the void between galaxies. They consume. They destroy. They care nothing for negotiation or surrender. They nearly ended all life in this galaxy before our ancestors drove them back. We swore never to fight again, because war against the harvesters cost us everything. Chen absorbed this information quickly. And now they are returning. How many? A technician checked the readings. Initial scans show at least 300 vessels. More may be following. Your weapons, Threnix said desperately. Your warship. Can it fight them? Captain Chen looked at her crew. They were tired, frightened humans on a single ship, facing an armada that had nearly destroyed an entire galaxy. By any logical measure, they had no chance. But logic had never stopped humanity before. We can try, Chen said. We did not come here looking for a war. But if a war has found us, we will not run from it. She turned to the terrified council with eyes that suddenly burned with determination. You wanted to know what humanity is. You saw our capacity for destruction. Now you will see something else. You will see what happens when humans have something worth fighting for. The council chamber fell silent as the human captain issued her first order. Historical archives of the Galactic Assembly contained records, stretching back 20,000 years. Most of these records described trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and scientific discoveries. But buried deep in the oldest sections, locked behind security protocols that nobody had accessed in millennia, were the files about the harvesters. High Counselor Threnix ordered these files opened for the first time in 12,000 years. The information they contained painted a picture of horror, beyond anything Captain Chen had shown about human history. The harvesters were not a species in the traditional sense. They were more like a force of nature. They moved through the cosmos in massive ships, consuming everything in their path. Planets, asteroids, stars themselves, nothing was safe from their hunger. They did not negotiate because they did not communicate. They did not stop because they did not tire. They simply consumed. 12,000 years ago, the harvesters had entered the galaxy with an armada of 10,000 vessels. The ancient civilizations had fought desperately to stop them. The war lasted 3 centuries and cost the lives of trillions. Entire species were wiped from existence. Countless worlds were reduced to barren rocks. In the end, the survivors won only because they sacrificed everything. They destroyed their own weapons, collapsed their own shipyards, and created a desperate final gambit that drove the harvesters back into the void between galaxies. The survivors swore the covenant of harmony, promising to never again build weapons of war. They believed that by abandoning violence, they would somehow prevent the harvesters from returning. They were wrong. Captain Chen studied these records in a small conference room aboard the Perseverance. Ambassador Velketh sat beside her, her feathers shifting through shades of gray and black that indicated deep distress. Your ancestors almost defeated them before, Chen said. That gives us something to work with. Velketh shook her head. We had fleets of warships, weapons beyond counting, warriors trained from birth. We have none of those things now. We have forgotten how to fight. We cannot even remember what weapons look like. Then you will learn, Chen said simply. You do not understand. It took our ancestors centuries to push back the harvesters, and they had everything. We have nothing. One human warship cannot save an entire galaxy. Chen leaned back in her chair and looked at the holographic display, showing the approaching enemy fleet. 300 vessels, each one larger than Nexus Station. The tactical situation was hopeless. You are right, she said. One ship cannot win this war. Velketh's feathers drooped further. Then what do? We build more ships. The words hung in the air between them. Velketh stared at the human captain, trying to understand. Build more ships. We have no weapons technology. We have no military tradition. We have no idea where to even begin. But we do, Chen said. Humanity has spent its entire existence preparing for war. We have strategies, tactics, weapons designs, training programs, everything you need to fight. We can teach you. That would take years, decades. The harvesters will reach the core systems in months. Chen smiled. It was a cold smile, hard and sharp. Then we work fast, within hours. The Perseverance had transmitted an enormous data package to every world in the Galactic Assembly. It contained the entire military history of Earth, every war, every weapon, every tactical innovation. It included schematics for weapons ranging from simple projectile launchers to nuclear missiles. It contained training manuals for soldiers, sailors, pilots, and commanders. The galaxy had asked what humanity was. Now they had their answer. Ambassador Velketh watched the assembly's reaction with growing amazement. She had expected resistance, denial, refusal to accept such terrible knowledge. Instead, she saw a species that had never known violence suddenly desperate to learn it. Fear was a powerful teacher. The Melori, with their many tentacles and excellent coordination, began building targeting systems in their underwater factories. The Colossi, whose crystalline bodies were naturally resistant to heat and radiation, volunteered to crew the first generation of armed vessels. Even the peaceful Valorians, Threnix's own species, began studying human tactics with grim determination. But building an army took more than enthusiasm. It took leadership. It took experience. It took something the galaxy did not have: warriors. Captain Chen addressed the emergency session of the Council 3 days after the Harvester alarm. "We cannot build a fleet of human ships," she explained. "We do not have the population or the resources. Even if we did, there is not enough time. The Harvesters will be here in 97 days. Then what do you propose?" Threnix asked. "We build a fleet of galactic ships. We use your factories, your materials, your populations. We convert your existing vessels into weapons platforms. We train your volunteers in human combat tactics. We create an army that belongs to everyone. And who will lead this army?" Chen gestured to her crew, the small group of humans who had traveled across the stars seeking a new home. "We will, not as conquerors, but as teachers. We will show you how to fight. We will stand beside you in battle. And when this is over, we will help you build a peace stronger than anything you have known before." The vote was unanimous. The galaxy placed its survival in human hands. The next weeks were chaos. The Perseverance served as a mobile command center, jumping from system to system, coordinating the defense effort. Human engineers worked around the clock, adapting alien technologies to military purposes. Human drill instructors trained volunteers who had never held a weapon, turning peaceful citizens into soldiers. Ambassador Velketh found herself caught up in this whirlwind. She had expected to serve as a diplomatic liaison, a translator between human and alien mindsets. Instead, Chen had something else in mind. "You are going to command a strike wing," the captain announced. Velketh's feathers went white with shock. "I am a diplomat, not a warrior." "You are what we need," Chen replied. "Your people are fast, agile, excellent at three-dimensional thinking, perfect for fighter craft. And you have something else, the respect of the other species. They trust you. They will follow you. I do not know how to fight." "Then learn. You have 6 weeks." Those 6 weeks transformed Velketh into something she had never imagined. She learned to pilot attack craft, to fire weapons, to think like a predator. The training was brutal, pushing her far beyond anything she had experienced in her peaceful life. But she was not alone. Thousands of other volunteers suffered alongside her, species that had never known violence forcing themselves to master it. And always, the humans were there, patient, determined, endlessly adaptable. They modified training programs to suit different body types. They adjusted weapon designs for different numbers of limbs. They showed the same creativity in teaching war that they had once shown in waging it. Chen pushed herself hardest of all. She slept only a few hours each night, spending the rest of her time coordinating the defense effort. Velketh noticed the toll this was taking, the deepening lines on the captain's face, the tremor in her hands, the moments when exhaustion nearly overwhelmed determination. "Why do you drive yourself so hard?" Velketh asked one evening. "You came here seeking help. You owe us nothing." Chen looked up from her tactical displays. Her eyes were red-rimmed and tired, but they still burned with intensity. "Because this is what we are," she said simply. "Humans are at their best when things are at their worst, when there is no hope left, when all seems lost. That is when we discover what we are truly capable of. But your own world is dying. Your own people are facing extinction. Why fight for us when you should be saving yourselves?" Chen smiled sadly. "Because saving you is saving ourselves. If the Harvesters consume this galaxy, they will grow stronger. Eventually, they will find whatever new home we might have built. The only way to truly save humanity is to save everyone." She turned back to her displays. "Besides, this is what we have always wanted. We came here hoping to find a place among the stars. Instead, we found something better, a chance to prove that humanity has changed, that we can use our terrible gifts for good, that we are more than the monsters our history suggests. Velkath understood then. The humans were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for redemption. The Harvester fleet continued its advance. 3 months became 2 months. 2 months became 1. Reports came in from the frontier. Colonies consumed, outposts destroyed. Advanced scouts probing the defensive lines. But the galaxy was no longer helpless. Where there had been nothing, now there was a fleet. Crude, hastily built, crewed by beings who had learned to fight only weeks earlier. But it was a fleet. The Galactic Defense Force numbered 800 vessels. Most were converted transports and cargo ships, fitted with weapons and armor that their designers had never imagined. They were no match for the Harvesters in raw power. But they had something the Harvesters had never faced before. They had humanity. As the enemy entered the outer defense perimeter, Captain Chen addressed the combined fleet. Today, we face an enemy that nearly destroyed this galaxy once before. They are stronger than us. They are more numerous than us. They have consumed civilizations beyond counting. She paused, and her voice hardened. They have never F. The first wave of Harvesters struck the defensive line, like a hammer hitting glass. The massive vessels moved with terrible purpose, ignoring the smaller ships that darted around them like insects. Their weapons, ancient and devastating, carved through the makeshift fleet with contemptuous ease. 30 ships died in the first minute. Ambassador Velkath watched from her fighter as a Melori cruiser exploded nearby, its hull torn apart by energy beams that burned hotter than stars. The crew had no time to escape. 200 beings who had learned to fight only weeks ago were gone in an instant. Fear threatened to overwhelm her. Every instinct told her to flee, to run, to survive. But Captain Chen's voice came through the communication system, calm and steady despite the chaos. Strike Wing 3, you are drifting left. Correct your formation. Remember your training. Velkath forced herself to focus. Her talons tightened on the controls. Around her, her squadron responded to Chen's command, reforming into the attack pattern they had practiced countless times. Target their weapon nodes, Chen continued. Their main armor is too strong for your weapons, but the nodes are vulnerable. Make every shot count. Velkath led her wing in a sweeping arc toward the nearest Harvester vessel. The alien ship was enormous, larger than a small moon. Its surface bristled with weapon systems that swiveled to track the approaching fighters. Evasive pattern Delta, Velkath ordered. Do not fly straight. Make them work for every shot. Her squadron scattered like leaves in a storm, each fighter following a different, unpredictable path. The Harvester weapons fired, but the small craft were hard to hit. Some still died, their shields overloaded, their hulls pierced, but others made it through. Velkath fired her weapons at a glowing node on the Harvester's surface. The shot hit perfectly, and the node exploded in a shower of sparks. It was a small victory, a tiny wound on a massive enemy. But it was something. Good hit, Chen's voice confirmed. All wings, continue targeting nodes. Every one we destroy reduces their firepower. Across the battlefield, the pattern repeated. The Galactic fleet was outgunned and outnumbered, but they had been trained by humans. They knew that winning a battle was not always about strength. Sometimes it was about courage. Sometimes it was about refusing to give up. The Perseverance led the human contingent directly into the heart of the enemy formation. Chen's ship was designed for combat, its weapons far more powerful than anything the Galactic forces could field. Where the Perseverance went, Harvesters died. But even the Perseverance could not be everywhere at once, and the Harvesters kept coming. High Counselor Threnix watched the battle from the command center on Nexus Station. The elderly Valorian had insisted on staying, refusing evacuation despite the danger. If the fleet fell, the station would be next. Threnix wanted to see the end, whatever it might be. The tactical display showed the grim reality. The Galactic fleet had lost over 100 ships in the first hour. The Harvesters had lost only 12. At this rate, the battle would be over within days. The galaxy would fall. We cannot win like this, said one of his aides. We should order a retreat. Save what ships we can. Threnix shook his head. Where would they retreat to? The Harvesters will not stop. They never stop. If we run now, we only die tired." As he spoke, something changed on the tactical display. One of the harvester vessels suddenly lurched sideways, its formation broken. Threnix looked closer and saw the Perseverance locked onto the enemy ship, like a predator holding prey. "What is Captain Chen doing?" the aide asked. Threnix watched in amazement as the Perseverance's weapons fired directly into the harvester's hull. At point-blank range, the human ship was taking tremendous damage, its shields flickering, its armor scarred with dozens of hits. But it refused to retreat. Then Chen's voice came over the command channel, calm and clear despite the chaos of battle. "This is Captain Chen to all forces. I have identified a weakness in the Harvester command structure. Their vessels are controlled by central nodes, similar to a brain. If we destroy these nodes, the ships become uncoordinated. They stop working together." A pause. "Then, I am transmitting coordinates for the command nodes on each Harvester vessel. These targets are deep inside enemy armor. Reaching them will require close-range assault. Many of you will not survive." Another pause, longer this time. "I am asking you to die for strangers, for a galaxy that is not your home, for species you have never met. I know how much I am asking, but this is how we win. This is how we save everyone." Threnix felt tears forming in his ancient eyes. He had lived for 7 centuries. He had never heard words like these. He had never seen courage like this. On the tactical display, the Galactic Fleet responded to Chen's call. Ships broke formation, accelerating toward the Harvester vessels. Fighters followed, ignoring their own survival, focused only on reaching those critical targets. Ambassador Velketh was among them. Her fighters screamed through the chaos of battle, dodging weapons fire, slipping past debris. Her squadron had been reduced to 4 ships, the rest destroyed in the initial assault. But 4 ships were enough. "Stay with me," she told her pilots. "We make this count." They approached a harvester vessel from below, using a destroyed cruiser as cover. The alien ship's weapons tracked them, firing constantly, but Velketh's pilots were good. They had learned from humans. They flew like they were already dead, with nothing left to lose. The command node was exactly where Chen had indicated. Velketh saw it through her targeting display, a pulsing structure deep within the harvester's hull, protected by layers of armor. "All weapons," she ordered. "Everything we have." 4 fighters fired simultaneously. Their combined firepower burned through the outer armor, carved through internal systems, and struck the command node with killing force. The harvester vessel went dark. Across the battlefield, the same scene repeated. Ships crewed by beings who had never known violence sacrificed themselves to strike at critical targets. Fighters flown by species that had evolved for peace dove into certain death to save their galaxy. The harvesters began to falter, but the cost was terrible. The Galactic Fleet shrank by the hour. For every harvester destroyed, dozens of defender ships died. The Nexus Station's display showed fewer and fewer friendly symbols as the battle continued. Captain Chen kept the Perseverance in the thickest fighting, where casualties were highest and hope was lowest. Her presence inspired those around her. Her commands kept the fleet organized. Her example showed them what humans were truly made of. On the 2nd day of the battle, the Perseverance took a direct hit that knocked out half its weapons. On the 3rd day, its shields failed entirely. By the time the last harvester fell, the ship was barely able to move, its hull cracked and burning, its crew reduced by half. But the harvesters were defeated. The surviving vessels of the Galactic Fleet gathered around Nexus Station, battered and broken but victorious. Of the 800 ships that had entered the battle, fewer than 200 remained. The casualties among the 38 species numbered in the millions. Yet they had won. High Counselor Threnix met Captain Chen as she limped off the Perseverance, supported by 2 of her surviving crew. The human captain looked like she had aged decades in 3 days. Her uniform was torn and stained. Her face was marked by burns and cuts, but her eyes still burned with that fierce light that had carried them through. "You saved us," Threnix said. His voice broke on the words. "You came here seeking help, and instead, you saved us all." Chen shook her head slowly. "We saved each other. Humans cannot claim this victory. It belongs to everyone who fought." to every species that found the courage to stand when everything seemed lost. But without you, without your knowledge, without your example, we would have been helpless, perhaps, Chen admitted. But without your courage, your willingness to learn, your determination to fight for your homes, all our knowledge would have meant nothing. This was not a human victory or a galactic victory. This was a victory for everyone. She looked up at the stars visible through the station's windows. Somewhere out there, more harvesters might be waiting. The threat was not entirely gone, but the galaxy was no longer helpless. We came here hoping to find a new home, Chen said softly. We found something better. We found a family worth fighting for. Threnix took her hand, a gesture of respect and gratitude that his species rarely offered to outsiders. Then stay with us, he said. Not as refugees or visitors. Stay as members of our family. Your dying world may not survive, but humanity will. Here among us, forever. Captain Chen smiled, and for the first time since she had arrived, the weight seemed to lift from her shoulders. We would like that, she said. We would like that very much. But even as she spoke, Velketh looked at the Perseverance through the station windows. The warship was damaged, barely functional. It had given everything in the battle. Something told her that its final sacrifice was not yet complete. The victory celebrations lasted for days. Every species in the Galactic Assembly mourned their dead, honored their heroes, and gave thanks for their survival. The humans were treated as saviors wherever they went. Beings who had once fled in terror at the sight of the Perseverance now pressed forward to touch the crew, to offer gifts, to express their endless gratitude. Captain Chen accepted these honors with quiet grace, but Ambassador Velketh could see the worry in her eyes. Something was wrong, something she had not shared with the Council. On the 5th day after the battle, Velketh found Chen alone in the Perseverance's observation deck. The human captain stood at the window, staring at the stars with an expression of deep sadness. The celebrations trouble you, Velketh said. It was not a question. Chen did not turn around. The harvesters are not defeated. We destroyed their advance force, nothing more. Our scans show more vessels gathering at the edge of the galaxy. Perhaps 1,000 ships, perhaps more. They will return in months, not years. Velketh felt her feathers drain of color. 1,000 ships, but we barely survived 300. I know. Chen finally turned to face her. The captain's eyes were wet with unshed tears. We won a battle. We have not won the war. And when the main harvester fleet arrives, we will not be able to stop it. The words hit Velketh like a physical blow. After everything they had sacrificed, everything they had lost, it was not enough. There must be something we can do, she said desperately. Chen nodded slowly. There is one chance. The harvesters are controlled by a central intelligence, a hive mind that coordinates all their vessels. If we destroy it, the entire species will collapse. Without guidance, their ships will drift aimlessly. They will never threaten anyone again. Then we attack this intelligence. Where is it? At the center of their fleet, protected by hundreds of vessels. No conventional attack could reach it. Chen paused, but an unconventional attack might. Something in her voice made Velketh's blood run cold. What are you planning? Captain Chen walked to a display panel and activated a holographic image. It showed the Perseverance, heavily damaged but still functional. My engineers have been working since the battle ended. They have modified the ship's reactor to produce a chain reaction when destabilized. The resulting explosion would be equivalent to a small star going nova. Velketh stared at her in horror. You are talking about destroying your own ship. I am talking about flying my ship into the heart of the harvester fleet and detonating it next to their central intelligence. Chen's voice was calm, almost peaceful. It is the only way. There must be another option. You cannot simply sacrifice yourself. Not after everything you have done. I appreciate your concern, Ambassador. But this is not suicide. This is necessity. Chen smiled sadly. Humans have a long tradition of sacrificing ourselves for others. We call it heroism. Sometimes, the greatest thing you can do is give everything for something larger than yourself. Velketh wanted to argue, to find another way, to save this remarkable human who had saved so many. But she saw the determination in Chen's eyes. This was not a decision made in despair. This was a decision made in hope. Your crew, Velketh managed, "will not be with me. This is a one-way trip, and I will not ask anyone else to take it. The Perseverance can be operated by a single person. It will be me." The next hours were a blur of activity. Word spread through the fleet about Chen's plan. There were protests, arguments, even threats. High Counselor Threnix himself came to the Perseverance to beg Chen to reconsider. "You are too valuable to lose," he insisted. "Humanity needs its captain." Chen shook her head. "Humanity needs a future more than it needs me. And the only way to ensure that future is to end the harvester threat forever. Let one of us go instead. A volunteer from any of our species. Someone without your knowledge, your experience. The Perseverance is a human ship. Its systems are designed for human operators. And this is a human responsibility. We brought the knowledge of war to your galaxy. Let us also bring the peace in the end." There was nothing anyone could say. Chen had made her choice. The departure ceremony was attended by representatives from every species in the assembly. Thousands of beings gathered on Nexus Station to watch the Perseverance leave for its final mission. Many wept openly. Others stood in respectful silence. Captain Chen made one final transmission before she left. "I came to this galaxy seeking a home for my people. Instead, I found something better. I found a family, a community of beings who learned to stand together against the darkness, who discovered that courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. "Remember this moment. Remember what you accomplished. Remember that 38 species who had never known violence chose to fight for each other, chose to die for strangers, chose to be more than they had ever been before." Another pause. "I am not afraid. I am proud. Proud to have served with you. Proud to have fought beside you. Proud to give my life so that you can live." Her final words were simple. "Protect each other." The Perseverance accelerated away from the station, its damaged hull gleaming in the starlight. Ambassador Velketh watched from the observation deck, tears streaming down her feathers. The warship entered fold space and vanished. For 3 days, the galaxy waited. Long-range sensors tracked the Perseverance as it approached the Harvester fleet. They watched as hundreds of enemy vessels converged on the lone human ship. They held their breath as Chen pushed through the defenses, taking hit after hit, her shields failing, her hull breaking apart. And then, at the heart of the enemy formation, a new star was born. The explosion was visible across half the galaxy, a brilliant flash of light that outshone entire solar systems. When it faded, the Harvester fleet was gone, destroyed, scattered into atoms by the force of the blast. The Central Intelligence was dead. The threat was ended. The galaxy was saved. In the days that followed, the Galactic Assembly made several important decisions. First, they voted unanimously to grant humanity a new homeworld, a beautiful planet in a stable system, far from their dying sun. Ships were already being prepared to bring the first colonists from Earth. Second, they established the Galactic Defense Force as a permanent institution. Never again would the galaxy be caught defenseless. Representatives from every species would train together, prepare together, and if necessary, fight together. Third, they built a memorial. At the center of Nexus Station, in the Great Hall where the Council met, they erected a statue. It depicted Captain Sarah Chen, her hand extended not in threat, but in welcome. Her face bore an expression of calm determination. Her eyes looked forward, toward a future she had given everything to protect. The inscription at the base read simply, "She came in a warship. She taught us to be warriors." But her greatest lesson was this: true strength is not the power to destroy. It is the courage to protect. It is the choice to sacrifice everything for those you love. Ambassador Velketh stood before the statue often in the years that followed. She had risen to become the first commander of the Galactic Defense Force, a position she had never sought but could not refuse. Her species, like all the others, had changed forever because of their encounter with humanity. They had learned violence, yes, but more importantly, they had learned love. The humans arrived in increasing numbers as the years passed. They built cities on their new world. They shared their technologies and their cultures. They married into other species, created art, raised children, and slowly, gradually, became part of the galactic family. And in the greatest irony of all, The species that had arrived in a warship became the galaxy's greatest peacekeepers. Human diplomats traveled to every corner of known space, mediating disputes, preventing conflicts, teaching the lessons their captain had taught them. That sometimes you had to fight, but that fighting was always a choice, and that the best victory was one where nobody had to die at all. The galaxy had feared humanity at first sight. The great warship, the weapons, the history of violence had seemed like a threat to everything the peaceful species had built. But in the end, the humans were exactly what they had always been: survivors, protectors, beings capable of terrible destruction who chose, again and again, to build instead of destroy. They came in a warship. They left behind a legacy of hope. And somewhere, among the stars, Captain Sarah Chen smiled. Her sacrifice had not been in vain. Her people had found their home at last, not as conquerors, not as refugees, but as family, and that was all she had ever wanted.